Hi. I'm in a bit of a bad mood today. It's hot. The air conditioning's broken. It sounds like the most first world problem when you say that out loud, but it makes me grumpy. It's about 90 degrees. I live in Colorado. Can't stand the heat. All right. This is a note from Pam. Hi Tabitha, I'm Pam. First I want to thank you for your refreshing YouTube, blah, blah, blah. And now to my questions. You talk about how obesity is a result of dieting. This is question number 1, which I understand. But now my eating disorder is going wild because all my life I've been dieting and restricting even before being acutely anorexic. Now when I'm in recovery, I'm putting on so much weight, I'm scared my body will hold on to it and I'll become obese. Question 2. My nutritionist has me logging what I eat and sending them to her every night because I have a history of restriction. Sometimes I'll restrict even if I'm hungry, and I will wait until she tells me to eat something more. Sort of like she said, if she says I must eat something more, then it's okay. But other times I'll noticeably restrict, nothing major. Example, eating a low-fat muffin instead of a high-calorie lunch. And she says that my food for the day is great and my eating disorder goes bananas. Question 3. Since I started eating more, I'm way more hungry, and even if I want to restrict or fast, my body can't do it anymore. I feel weak physically and mentally, and it scares me. I know it's a long questionnaire, but I'd appreciate you if you could give me some insight. Thank you, Pam. Right, Pam. Well, honestly, the first thing I'm gonna ask you a question. I know you just asked me 3. In recovery or not, yes or no, which one's the answer? Because if you're in recovery, you should not be restricting food. Sounds to me like you're still trying to restrict. Question 3, you said, even when I want to restrict. If you're in recovery, you shouldn't be restricting. So therefore, you've just got to keep on, actually, if you're in recovery, do the work. Commit to it and do the work. You're not going to get anywhere by restricting. And you know that. That's the thing, Pam. You do know it. And the silly game that you're playing with your poor nutritionist, where you knowingly restrict food and then email her and then expect her to be on the ball enough, awake enough and quick enough with an email response to tell you that you're allowed to eat more. You're an adult, I'm assuming, and part of recovery is being accountable for your food intake. You are placing that on somebody else. You are placing the responsibility for your food intake on someone else. Again, let's go back to the question, are you in recovery or not? Yes or no? Because if you are in recovery, you should not be playing silly games with, let's test the nutritionist and see how awake she is this evening and whether she can answer my email, whether I'm going to eat more or not. And then that first question about you allowing your eating disorder to take what is just basic science that shows that dieting makes people gain weight, and you allowed your eating disorder to twist that up and turn it into a fear-based story which you're allowing yourself to listen to. That again is somewhere where you have to be accountable for controlling that monkey brain of yours and not allowing yourself to jump into unproductive fear-based stories. And because our brains are fearful of weight gain when you have restrictive eating disorder, your brain's going to create, and all of our brains do, a multitude of unproductive fear-based stories. So I had the unproductive fear-based story of infinite weight gain. I had the unproductive fear-based story that I was just going to binge eat forever and that was going to be it. I had all of these stories. And let's go back to that question, in recovery, yes or no? Because if you're in recovery, you are going to gain weight. You are going to allow your body to reach its unsuppressed body weight, whatever that may be. And so the story of all these fear-based stories are just exactly that. They are unproductive. Are you in recovery, yes or no? And if you are in recovery, you can't restrict, regardless of what your brain is telling you about the story of infinite weight gain or the story of infinite binge eating or whatever it is. And so when you've decided, yes, I'm in recovery, it suddenly doesn't make any sense at all to allow these stories to keep on playing in your head and keep on paying attention to them. Now, the reason that these stories exist is because we pay attention to them. Anything that we pay attention to, our brain then is like, oh, you paid attention to that, it must be important, because you don't pay attention to things if they're not important. And so that's why that story keeps on coming up. And every time you seek reassurance externally for that story, so you email someone and say, please reassure me, I'm not going to gain weight forever. Or you talk to somebody about it, say, please reassure me, I'm really scared I'm going to gain weight forever. Every time you externalize like that, you take what is a thought and you make it real as far as your brain's concerned. And then your brain's like, wow, this must be a really important thought because they're talking about it. And so what we want to do in order to teach your brain that these unproductive fear-based stories are just bullshit is we ignore them. We don't voice them and we don't seek reassurance. And that means actually, in order to do that, you're not seeking external reassurance, but you're actually reassuring yourself internally. You are dismissing that anxiety, fear-based story. And that's a difficult thing to do because your brain's going to go like, but it might be true. But in dismissing it and in refusing to give it airtime, you are actually starting to teach your brain, that's bullshit. That story is not important, is what you're teaching your brain. And the more that you ignore those stories, the less your brain is going to generate them, because in ignoring them, you're teaching your brain that it's not important. And being accountable for your own thoughts and the choice that exists to whether you believe and go into a fear-based story or whether you just let it pass on by and say, thank you very much, brain, I'm not going to listen to that. That is a choice. And if you have chosen to recover, it is a choice that you will then decide to make. Because like I said, if you've chosen, if you're like, I'm going to recover, it's a done deal, I'm going to get to my unsuppressed body weight, I'm going to trust my body, I'm going to eat without restriction, then what's the point of listening to those stories? You're not going to restrict, so they're pointless. But the problem that you're having, Pam, is you are not, as I would put it, in recovery right now. You're maybe going through the motions, but you're still restricting. You're not committed. You're still restricting food. You're still using other people like your dietitian as an excuse not to eat. She's not sharp enough and on the ball to jump all over your email and be like, oh, you should eat more. You're playing games. It's not recovery. I hate to tell you this, but playing games like that is not going to get you recovered. You need to sit down, give yourself a bit of a pep talk and be like, in recovery, yes or no, which one is it? And if it's yes, start doing it. And you can, and you are brave enough, and you are all of those things. Because the amazing thing about people with eating disorders is they are the most determined, stubborn people that I've ever met, all of them, all of us. We're all like that. If we decide to do something, it's as good as done. You just need to make that decision, don't you? A note though, on that first one, which is like this fear-based story of becoming obese. You're acting as if becoming obese would be the worst thing in the world. That's fattest. You want to check yourself for that. I know I had real problems with this when I was in recovery. I had to do a lot of neural rewiring to get myself out of being fattest and actually understanding that gaining weight, regardless of what some chart says or labels it, if your body has to be in a larger space, larger body, then that's where it should be. And that is a beautiful and healthy thing. And that's a really big health at every size pill to swallow. But it's very important, if you want to rewire that fattest attitude or belief system that your brain has, and most people with restrictive eating disorders, myself included, have to rewire that. If you want to rewire that, you have to stop yourself, even allowing yourself to act and think as if gaining weight, being in a larger body, is a bad thing. Because I promise you, having an eating disorder, being at a suppressed body weight, that's unhealthy, mentally and physically. If your body is supposed to be larger, then that's where it should go, and that would be the most beautiful and healthy thing that could be possible. And the only thing that you need to work on in order to really get your brain to a place of accepting that is the neural rewiring. There is not a problem with your body if it is larger. There's a problem with your brain and the judgments and all of that stuff. And that's really, really hard neural rewiring work, but you get it, right? You can't even allow yourself to think fattest thoughts. You got to go all in with that, and that's really true body acceptance. Is I'm going to accept my body, whatever size it ends up. That's the true body acceptance. If you're in a space where it's like, oh yeah, I get body acceptance and I'm going to accept my body just as long as it doesn't go above a BMI 24. That's not real body acceptance. That's body acceptance with conditions. And you will always be fearful if there are conditions. You will always be fearful. Whereas if you can get yourself to that true body acceptance of, I'm going to trust my body to go wherever it needs to go, wherever that may be, then you will be much less fearful. And that's one of the really important things that I did in recovery, is I truly was just like, I'm going to let my body go where it needs to go. And I am not going to pull the plug, or I'm not going to bottle it, or I'm not going to get judgmental about it. I am truly going to accept and let my body, without me interfering, go where it needs to go. And when I was able to do that, a lot of the fear went away. So, Pam, hope that helps. This was probably months ago that you emailed, so check in. Let us know how you do it. I hope that even before I did this video, I hope a while ago, you kind of realized that you were just playing games with recovery, not really in it. And I really hope that you decided to fully go for and commit to recovery. It's well worth it. Bye.